Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Bases Loaded. We got the trio back here: Brandon, Blake, and Chris. Technically, all three of our teams can still technically make the wild card. Chris needs all the help in the world.
I was like, it might be two, like any minute. So,
right, because I think I saw if the Cubs win today at all, it's over because they're at 82. San Diego wins out, they're at 82. Now, had they not lost game 2 against the Cardinals on Saturday, and then, you know what? I want to talk about this. Josh Hader is a piece of he's such a selfish person. The fact that he wasn't willing on Monday to come in for a 4-out save because he was worried about himself.
I know it's very interesting. Reports. Yeah, I mean, there's reports, the arbitration, the issues he's had in Milwaukee, like yada yada. That is, but it's very interesting in a contract year that he's going to go out there the last week of the season when he's pitched like 22 innings the last 2 months or something dumb like that and say, oh, I don't need to like risk injury or anything like that. I'm like, bro, like, why are you playing this game then?
It doesn't. I was just like, yeah, at that point, had the Padres not decided to wait 140 games to have an actual win streak, maybe that wouldn't have been an issue. But it took them literally like most of the season to even go on a somewhat long win streak, and then they needed all the help in the world. They did eliminate the Giants last night, so at least you can hold your hat on that. And you knocked out a divisional foe out of the playoffs. Blake, what the hell? The Kansas City Royals at home too.
Yeah, we've lost at home now like 20-something games.
Well, you're way better on the road, right?
30. Yeah, we're way better on the road. But you know what? At the end of the day, look, I'm not making excuses for this club. But at the same time, I have literally I haven't gotten excited about the way that we've played at all. I think the most excitement that I got was actually when I was on vacation, when they went into Arlington and did what they did to the Rangers for that 3-game series. I loved our chances of the division after that series, thinking that we were going into the A's and the Royals. And, the chatter here in Houston is, it's an epic collapse. But at the end of the day, yes, it is failure, but I don't really believe it's a collapse when you really think about it. Because, I mean, not having Lance and not having Garcia for the season and having 2 rookies come in and actually step up, and then trading for Verlander and actually only getting 2 technically legit good quality starts out of him, one being actually 2 nights ago. This team has not been able to put it all together. Okay. The only guy that's been carrying his weight all season long, really, truly, is Kyle Tucker. And the sad thing about it is when you look at Altuve's numbers and you look at Yordan's numbers look, Yordan missed 80 games and he still has hit 30 home runs this season. Yes, we've been spoiled and we hold Houston to a high standard. But honestly, if you kind of look at it and you would put anybody else with the season that they've had and telling me that they have about 85 wins with being at 70% all season long, I think that's a successful season, to be honest with you. But with the juggernaut that this team has with the 1 through 9 and the names that they have, not only in the pen, but in the starting rotation, that's not good enough for a local fan that's been spoiled to be in 6 playoffs. And when you really think about it, I mean, we forget, that even though they lost to the Braves, I mean, the Astros have been in the World Series the past 2 seasons in a row. That's something that I'm not going to take for granted as a fan and as a true fan, that I've considerably seen the 90s and the early 2000s when I had hopes that Bag and Beach could have gotten something before they retire. I'm not going to take that for granted. In fact, honestly, I mean, you guys know me. I'm always at the ballpark. Tickets have been ridiculous this season, after the World Series win. And honestly, like, the only thing I can say the positive out of this is ticket prices aren't going to be playoff tickets for regular season games this time next year, and I'll be at the ballpark a lot more. So I still have hope. I'm watching the game right now as I'm talking to you guys. Not a great start for Valdez.
Yeah.
Gave up the first pitch home run, and I mean he exited the first inning. He had like 27 pitches. This team doesn't have the will or the want right now, and I don't know who or what it would take this season to do that. The only positive out of this, and look, I'm going to say this, I have all the respect in the world for him, but the Dusty Baker experience needs to be over after this season.
Yeah, you said like if we don't get in and that causes him to be fired, I don't know if I'll be mad about it.
But at the end of the day, this right here, we see it too much time and time again. You either question why somebody hung something up, or you question why they didn't go out on top. And Dusty Baker, honestly, he should have gone out on top. That was the one thing that was missing for his resume. He should have rode off into the sunset. It would have been a beautiful ending to the story. Houston fan will probably always remember this season with or without making the playoffs. But yeah, it's depressing to have the juggernaut team that we've had not make it. But at the same time, too, as much as the whole narrative right now is focused on the AL West, we could say that a lot about a lot of teams around. And I'm not even going to even pick on Chris. I'm going to pick on the Cardinals. I'm going to pick on the Yankees. The Red Sox looked like they were going to surprise a lot of people right before the All-Star break, and they just completely fizzled out. Not trying to take focus, obviously, off of the Astros, but there's a lot of teams that were set and staged to make a lot of noise this season and have not done anything.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like you said, Cardinals, Mets, like what happened?
Oh, the Mets, yeah.
Mets won. And they literally traded like almost all of their major signings besides Lindor. Like I think the Mets are just as much a disappointment as the Padres are, because they both, that payroll's very, very high. And yes, the Padres could still technically make it. I don't know if it's a good look if you have a 82-80 team as a wild card. So, and then there was the report there with the Padres. I saw the other day that they're going to cut back on their payroll this offseason. I mean, obviously, they're not going to re-sign Snell. There's no way they're going to afford it. Yeah. And I think I'm like, you going to trade Cronenworth, try and get rid of that contract? If you can do that, it's probably very helpful. You have to re-sign Soto.
Yeah.
Like he is.
I mean, the good thing is you have 1 year left, so you don't have to do it this offseason. But I mean, yeah, it's going to be a really interesting year here, and obviously they're hanging on by a thread right now, but such a disappointing season, and there's talks coming out now that Seidler wants to keep both Melvin and Preller, and I think it's been proven that experience has not been successful, and
that experiment is done.
And I do not believe that is the fault of Bob Melvin. I think that solely lies on the shoulders of AJ Preller, and it's going to be a very interesting offseason here to see what happens with the Padres. Talks of Bob Melvin stepping down. If that happens, I feel like that's just going to be a huge failure to let him walk, especially because there are dozens of teams in Major League Baseball that would take him in an absolute heartbeat. Like if Dusty Baker walks away, that's probably something, that could be a really good fit in Houston. He's just one of those managers, and it's just very frustrating right now. And I joked with you guys a little while ago. I told you they're going to go on some run at the end of the season. They're going to miss the playoffs by like 5 games or whatever. And we're going to look at 15, 20 games that they easily could have flipped.
Extra inning games. If they could have won 3 of them, that 3 games flips right there, they're probably right where the Cubs are right now.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Ronald Acuna Jr., 40-70. He just stole stolen base number 70.
Yeah, I just saw him take that. Unbelievable.
So he hits a single to tie in the bottom of the 10th, and then he steals second. I'm like, what Freddie is doing, what Mookie is doing, what Olson's doing, but what Ronald has been doing the entire year. 40-70?
It's a crazy
It's not
number.
going to be unanimous, but I think he's going to run away with it.
I mean, he leads baseball in stolen bases. Like, he leads the league in stolen bases and has over 40 homers. Like, it's crazy.
It's really impressive. He's just fun. Like, the Braves are fun to watch. Like, I really enjoy. They just play the game the right way, and they just walked it off. Thank you, Braves, for beating the Cubs. Diamondbacks are now 2 games up. But the thing is, I'm not going to actively root for them to lose, but I would rather play the Brewers in the first round over the Phillies. And the only reason is the Brewers offense doesn't scare me as much as the Phillies offense does. That Phillies offense and what Bryce has been doing when literally had Tommy John not even 9 months ago.
Yeah.
Is impressive. Trey Turner has become the player that they signed that major contract to. But like I said, I'm not going to root for them to lose, but if they somehow stumble against Houston and they get the 3rd wild card over the 2nd wild card, won't be mad because I don't want to put the Dodgers.
What's your magic number right now at this point?
I think at the start of the day it was 4.
Okay, so now it's gone down. Okay. What did you, really quickly, what did you think about what happened over the weekend of them getting screwed on that Sunday postponement? Chicago pushing the game back and forcing them to spend an extra day in New York. Like, I feel like that's obviously, weather is weather, and every cold weather city should have a dome. Like, this is just smart, but it seems like it could really affect you guys, like, down this closing stretch.
I was a little bit worried when we started yesterday. Zach Davies, awful. Gave up like 8 hits through 3 innings, and then they DFA'd him today, and I was
like,
so
deuces.
Because he was scheduled to start Sunday. I'm like, that man cannot start the most important game of the season. So I was like, okay, you DFA'd him. At least you guys are realizing you can't. I think 2 of the 3 games this week are going to be bullpen games. I really do. Because I think right now we are 2 games up over the 3rd wild card. I think because Miami lost game 1 of their doubleheader today.
And they're tied right now, but it looks like they might take the lead in like the 8th inning.
So I think they're 3 games back as of that. So if they win 2.5, I think Cincy's like 3 games back. We got like 4 games left.
Yeah.
So I was like, I would rather them, because our 2 studs in Gallen and Kelly are slated to pitch Saturday. I believe Friday and Saturday. I would rather they not, and they both are good to go for the first 2 games of that wild card.
Well, I mean, I guess it depends what happens over the next 2 or 3 days. Like, maybe you slate them to pitch, and if, you guys get your wins and other things fall that way and you can clinch before, like, they have to go out there, that'd be huge. Because obviously, yeah, you want those guys starting potential game 1 and 2 of wild card game.
Because I think those 2 match up so well with the Phillies' top 2 in Wheeler and Nola. I think they're both on that same level. Points in the season, I thought Gallen was the best pitcher in the National League. And then the calendar turned to June 1st, and Blake Snell decided, I want to pitch. It's still funny how he's literally only faced 7 guys in the 7th or later. I still find that so odd.
There's a lot of wild stats about Blake.
I mean, no one else. Like, who else would win this? It's not Justin Steele. Like, Blake's ERA, I think, is like 2.24 or something. Like, it's so much lower. And the next guy's at like 2.49. So he's well ahead in terms of ERA. Strikeouts, he's there. His whip's a little high just because of all the walks that he gives up, but he doesn't allow guys to score. And that's the job of the pitcher. His job is to make sure that the other is basically run prevention. It's what he does. It's not what you typically see from a Cy Young who, yes, will go 7 and will have several complete games. But I think we got spoiled last year with Sandy Alcantara, who had like 9 complete games and literally had the Cy Young wrapped up by the trade deadline. And I said this about a month ago. There were several guys that had a good case for Cy Young. There was no one that was like great Cy Young this year in the National League. But I'd rather play in the playoffs than win a regular season award. Luckily, the Diamondbacks should have that twice with Corbin Carroll winning National League Rookie of the Year. Ellie decided to have a notable hard hit home run yesterday. That was his first highlight in like 6 weeks. That's all that man does.
Petty.
Because everyone, after his cycle, everyone's like, oh, he's going to beat out Corbin Carroll for NL Rookie of the Year because he started well his first 2 weeks. And then teams adjusted to him, but he didn't adjust to other teams. And he's not going to be able to win it next year because he's had too many at-bats this year. So, yeah, just I was worried this past weekend because we blew the game on Monday against the Yankees.
That was rough.
We had that lead in the bottom of the 8th, and our best bullpen arm outside of our closer, Ginkel, could not throw a strike. Literally walks the bases loaded, walks in a run. And I was like, if that is the reason that we don't make the playoffs, like that inning, I'm going to be just in a pissed off mood. Luckily, they've taken 2 of the 3 here from Chicago. And I was like, if we sweep Chicago, as we should, because Chicago is a dumpster fire, then I felt really good. We've taken 2 of 3. And luckily, Miami has struggled. Chicago, the Cubs have struggled too. So I feel like we're probably going to get in. I feel a whole lot better if we beat Chicago tomorrow. That way, to be honest, we probably only have to take 1 from Houston.
Well, Miami just took the lead in the 9th, so that's not helping your rest case.
No, it's not. But right now they're 2.5 up on Chicago, and then Miami's a half game behind Chicago. So we're 2.5 back. So, okay. So that's why winning tomorrow against Chicago is going to be huge. Because if we can take that, I think maybe taking 2 from Houston would be good. But it depends on what Houston does tonight. Also with Houston, maybe not winning the division's a good thing because you get to play Minnesota if you get that 3rd wild card. So is that really a bad thing?
The way they're playing right now, I'm not going to take any team lightly right now, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you don't want to be the first team to allow Minnesota to win a postseason game in like 5,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
They just got Chris Paddock back, man. They're unstoppable. Did you see him out of the bullpen last night throwing like high 90s?
Didn't he have Tommy John last year? Or was it another elbow?
It was last season. So it was a while ago, but he's out of their bullpen right now and looked decent.
Interesting.
But yeah, I mean the American League, we've been spending a lot of time talking about the National League and obviously a little bit on the AL West, but it's such a fascinating race right now. You've got Toronto, Houston, Seattle, all kind of like there with each other. And Toronto, I think, has Tampa Bay to close the season, and we've talked about obviously with the what's going on with the AL West and all the matchups there. So there's going to be a lot to play for. I mean, you look right now, and the looks like the Rangers are up on the Angels. So if they can hold on and win, and obviously it's still early up in Seattle, so you can't really make a call there one way or the other. But these are some big games tonight going into these weekend series for all 3 of these clubs.
Yeah, I feel like the last couple of seasons we were on cruise control by now.
Yeah.
and we were just literally talking about the last 2 wild card spots, but there's so much to play for this year on both sides of the division, or not division, but the NL and the AL, obviously. So it's going to be really interesting to see how these weekend series go, especially with the 4-game series coming up with the Rangers. To be honest with you, that's going to be the most intriguing thing because they play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah. Well, and there's 2 divisions up for grab right now, which is really crazy because especially in both of those divisions.
Crazy.
I know, but in both of those divisions, in the West and the East, you're talking about a first round bye or being on the road to the playoffs. Like it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. Like we're gonna again probably have 2 100-win teams in the same division. One of them gets a first round bye, and one of them has to play this wild card series. Like they've been going back and forth. Right now, Baltimore has a 2.5 game lead. Their magic number's 2. Yeah. So they have the easier final series against Boston. It's not exactly super easy because Boston, like the AL East, it's crazy, almost had all of them at over 500.
Yeah.
Like I did not
until Boston went on that collapse. there was a decent chance of that happening, but I think one insane thing that we might see is these the Rays and the Jays close out the regular season against each other and then just run it back in the wild card round.
Another one we could see like that, Cubs final series against the Brewers. If the Cubs end up getting that 3rd spot, they play the Brewers again in Milwaukee. So it's literally like
travel will be light.
Precursor. Like they just stay there because the series starts on playoffs start on Tuesday. Oh God, dude! Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is gonna be great. We got 4 games literally all day. It's like back to back. It'll probably be like a 10-1, 4-7.
Yeah,
I hope
it's gonna.
I hope they don't do this where they do 2 at the same time. Like, why? There's no reason to do that. Like they've
done a pretty good job of stretching them out, at least like overlapping a little bit. But that's going to happen when you have to get all these games in. You've got to kind of overlap a little bit. You can't just have them all at separate times.
So yeah, I want to see Baltimore. Like I want to see Baltimore go far because they're going to be good for a while. So much young talent. And they literally have the top prospect in baseball, Jackson Holliday, in triple. He literally went 3 levels in the same year, and he's tore it up. Like he's going to probably be on their opening day roster next year. So this is not going to be a fluke year for Baltimore. This could be a good couple of years for them.
Yeah.
Like I'm just glad that the way Tampa started, at least, that they're gonna make the playoffs, because they started like, what was it, like 16-1 or like
it was an absolute insane start to the season, even like up to like 35, 40 games. Like it was just an amazing run to start the season. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously, they've had some injuries here and there, and they've had something else that happened, or they basically lost a star piece. So it's they're an interesting team watching going into the playoffs. I'd say the Braves, with a lot of the pitching injuries that they've been suffering, like they're going to be a really interesting team in the playoffs. Like obviously we know they can score runs, but it's a different beast in the postseason, as we've seen before. So yeah, I mean, it's especially watching all year, seeing how these teams have been in the standings and getting so close to the end of the road and getting ready for the playoffs. Like I'm excited for just a lot of these storylines.
Yeah, Diamondbacks have a meaningful game in September for the first time in like 4 years. They haven't made the playoffs since 2017. I was at their that wild card game against Colorado. Like that was, and then they played. Like I don't want to play the Dodgers in the playoffs so goddamn bad because they have our number. Like that will most likely be a sweep. So that's why I'm like, I kind of want the final wild card. So then we play the Brewers, and then we play the Braves. But just get in, because that's all the playoffs are. Is everyone starts back at 0.
Yep.
So that's why I'm like, just get into the tournament. You never know what can happen. Phillies are a prime example of that from last year. Like, no one gave them a shot against the Cardinals.
I think a better scenario is the Braves. I mean, the Braves, when you think about it, they got on the hot streak, got in, and won the whole thing in 2022. Same thing with the Nats. You know, we've seen it time and time again.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right with the Phillies.
Both times against the Astros. I can't tell if he's just mad he's not.
Oh, no. I thought he was mad at first, too, but it turns out he was frozen.
I 100% see what you're saying, Brandon, but honestly, I think that you would be okay still at the 5. I mean, I know it's no feat saying that you could go up against Philly or the Braves, but if I were you, I would actually like. I get where you're coming from, but I would be just excited to even have your name in the dance this time around, because I mean, with all kidding aside, I know we've taken shots at each other all season long, but it's impressive to see what the Diamondbacks have done, because they're 2 years ahead of what anybody would have thought that they would have been ahead of. And to be honest with you, you've done it on the back of a pitching roster that wasn't really expected to do what they've kind of done. I know you've been hard on the bullpen, and rightfully so, but
they're our most consistent rotation, part of the team the last 2 months.
This starting rotation wasn't expected to make as much noise as they did outside of Gallen, obviously.
I thought Kelly could get 13, 14 wins, just because I've seen what he's done the last 2 years since he came here from Korea. So I knew Kelly would be a solid number 2, but Gallen, thank you, Strom. Like, Brent Strom has done wonders for Gallen, has turned him into the Cy Young candidate that he is, because he's gonna get votes.
Yeah.
Yes, he has the most wins, but pitching wins is not a pitcher stat, because it's out of their control. Especially when you have a lot of unearned runs. So I don't think he's going to win it. If Snell doesn't win it, there needs to be an investigation. Just like if Ronald Acuna Jr. doesn't win NL MVP, there needs to be an investigation.
What will you do if Corbin Carroll doesn't win the Rookie of the Year?
You guys may want to check on my welfare, because I'm not going to be in a good place. I'm going to be like, who? Like, what other player? Unless they change the rules, where it's like, oh, yeah, a guy from last year can still win it.
It's like the NBA All-Star game now, where you just vote, and even though a player doesn't deserve it, they win it, and Ellie just wins.
I will drive out to San Diego to your house, and I will bitch slap you for if that freaking happens. Like, he put this out into the universe. So,
oh my God.
But no, the next 4 games is really huge for Blake and myself's teams. For Chris, it depends on what happens today, because you guys are technically still alive.
Yeah, just rip the fucking Band-Aid off. I saw they're losing right now, which is good, because if they can just lose the Giants and I can just be at peace, like, I'm good with that. I don't need to worry this weekend. I'd rather focus on your guys' series and enjoy the baseball.
Because I believe if Miami wins,
Miami can win one more, I think.
Okay, so even if because they're at 81, but who has the tiebreaker? I think San Diego.
It's something where, like, the way it works out, like, if the Cubs, Miami, and San Diego all end up with the same record, they win the tiebreaker somehow, but they don't win the tiebreaker against the Cubs individually.
I believe I saw, if Marlins, Padres, and Cubs.
Weird.
Marlins have the tiebreaker over the Cubs. Padres have the tiebreaker over the Marlins, but the Cubs have it over it's so weird. I was like, wait, if we get to that point, like Miami I believe if they if they finish this game today, which is bottom of the ninth, they have a 2-run lead. Basically, they have to lose out. San Diego has to win out. But had San Diego done the job and won against the Cardinals on Saturday and won on Monday against the Giants, they'd be in a really good spot. They'd be on pace for 84. But right now, the best they can do is 82 and 80. They'll probably finish 81 and 81. Which, hey, you've been trying to get back to 500 all year. You just took 160.
It's going to be pretty hilarious if it happens like on the last game of the season, honestly. Marlins just won, so that's final.
Okay, so they did take that one. So, yeah, they're at, I think, 82 now and 75? No, 82 and 76. So, yeah, they're 4 games up on the Padres with 4 to go. But Padres have the tiebreaker. Anything can happen. As long as mathematically you're alive, anything can happen.
But I think the Marlins are in above the Cubs right now too, which is it's gonna be a fun final weekend, man.
I'm looking at an easier final. I mean, actually, it's not true. They both have a pretty easy final series. Both about. I think the Pirates are better than the White Sox, but really not by much. But no, Chris is like, just lose tonight. You don't have to worry about it. Hey, lose tonight.
Like they're losing. Just get it out of the way so I can not have to worry about it the next couple of days.
So yeah. God, these next 4 days, I'm gonna be on the edge of my seat. Like the Diamondbacks' chances of making the playoffs are very, very good, but you never know.
I mean, until it's over, yeah. We've seen crazy things happen, that's for sure.
Like, because they could lose the next 4 and they're out. Like, if they lose the next 4 and Marlins and Cubs win the next, like, there's still mathematically, statistically, a lot can still happen. So I would feel better if we kind of not have it clinched, but pretty much it's set in stone before the game on Saturday. I was like, okay, we can do bullpen games on Saturday and Sunday, and Gallen and Kelly don't have to pitch, and they can wait till Tuesday and Wednesday. But
I am so looking forward to the two of you guys going head to head with your seasons on the line. Honestly,
I'm going to the game on Saturday for sure. Sunday, I'm not sure. If the season's still on the line, I will go. If not, I'm going to stay home and watch football that day. So,
JV's pitching on Saturday.
Yeah, that's another reason I want to go. And the thing is, I think they might still have Gallen pitch one of the games because it'll be on his normal rest, and they want to keep them kind of in that rhythm, same schedule, so they may not want to throw that off. Because he pitched last Sunday, so he'd be slated for Friday. So today I saw that they designated for assignment Zach Davies, and I'm like, finally, you're a shitty pitcher and you're a shitty human being. Thank you. You're no longer on my team anymore. So, any parting thoughts for the pod, fellas?
I mean, as the first team to be eliminated here in the group, I guess I'll go. And yeah, man, dude, honestly, like, it's been a rough season here, but there's been a ton of quality baseball to watch. Like, keeping eyes on both of your guys' teams. Like, incredible season so far, and hope you both get an opportunity to play some October baseball.
I would love to go watch an October baseball game, but that requires us to survive at least the wild card round. That's why for a while there, when we were like 2.5 back of the Phillies, I'm like, God, you know what? It's there, but can they do it? Because I'm like, that'd be really fun to have those 3 straight, or at least 3 straight, minimum of 2. But then they went and kind of struggled there for about a couple of days, and then Philly went on a hot streak. I was like, then we were down by 4.5 with like 6 to go. I'm like, that's really tough. That is a lot of ground to make up and not a lot of time. So, yeah, just hope that they can do it, or else I'm going to be disappointed, like all my other sport teams have done throughout my life.
I have felt that for a while, but I've actually. It's nice to finally see not only the sport that was your first love, but the team that you've rooted for your whole life finally win one. And I think after seeing the way that they've played all season long, it's got to be bittersweet, but it's not a tough pill to swallow, if that makes sense. They're just not. They haven't played good baseball all season long. So if somehow the Astros don't make it, it's really not going to upset me, because the last thing I'm going to touch on that I didn't touch on in my rant was obviously, Crane firing his GM right afterwards and going a whole offseason without a GM. We didn't take care of some crucial parts. I think the Astros reload, obviously, going into the next season. And as painful it is to say, I get that's a business, and that's with or without Tucker, if that makes sense. If they don't sign Tucker, that means that we're going to bring in a big arm. If they do sign Tucker, they're going to have to probably bring in another crafty veteran. But either way, I think that this team will have a better front to do that on next season. And I really think that it will be time for a mutual parting with Dusty Baker at that point as well too. So if they make it, they make it. This team can get hot. We've shown that time and time again. This team has also been in the playoffs a lot more than a lot of these younger teams. And if they can get in with that last spot, with the Twins and the Rangers right there, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if a couple of weeks from now they were back in the ALCS, or honestly, after this weekend, it wouldn't surprise me if they were at home at this point, just with the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde scenario that we've gotten with this team all season long. So I'm just looking forward for a good postseason. And I think the teams that are in there, it's going to be really, really exciting, because it's not the same names that we've seen for the past couple of years.
Yeah. So I was thinking that we do predictions, but there's still so much in the air.
Mm-hmm.
As to like,
I just hope everyone has a good time.
Because you're not going to. I mean, you had it last year.
I'm gonna have a great time, man. So, I'm thinking about how much money I'm saving over the next month, man. This is quality.
That is so true.
Christmas is gonna be good this year, Chris.
Because friggin' playoff baseball is not cheap. That is definitely for sure. I do appreciate everyone here for tuning in to today's episode right before the end of the season. It's going to be a fun postseason, regardless if Blake and I's teams make it in or not. Fingers crossed that they do. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You can see all of our Twitters in the description box below. See you next time.